Guys, today we're going to be changing out a rear brake wheel cylinder on this 3/4 ton vehicle, and I'm just showing you kind of like on the back side here before we take the wheel off. You got the brake line coming into the wheel cylinder, you've got the bleeder valve and the cap, or the bleeder screw rather, and the cap, and then there's two bolts that attach it to the backing plate that attaches to the axle. I'm going to be removing this guy because I had replaced the one on the other side. Excuse me, I replaced the one on the other side, and I just want to replace them in pairs, and I didn't film the other one, so I'm going to film this one. So it's just a straightforward repair. So we're going to go on the other side, take the wheel off, jack it up, and we'll start the repair. Got the wheel off and the brake drum off so that you can see this is the wheel cylinder, the brake wheel cylinder right here. You're going to need a couple of tools to do this job. You're going to need a 13mm socket because there's two bolts that retain the wheel cylinder to the backing plate. You're going to need a 9/16 flare wrench. As long as you've got the factory brake line, it's going to be a 9/16 fitting nut on there. And then you're going to need a brake spring tool, which is what we're going to need to do to get these springs off, release the tension so we can take the old cylinder off and put the new one on. So now the hardest part of this job, and by the way, probably also a flashlight, is probably also something good to have. So probably the hardest part of this job is if it's been sitting as long as this one has, particularly if you're in a climate where there's a lot of salt on the road, this brake line fitting in the back is going to be pretty corroded. And so I've sprayed the back with PB Blaster. And just let me get here, position my tool on here. And then what I would suggest doing is you kind of, once you break the torque of the fitting, you're going to want to just kind of walk it slowly back and forth. All right, so I'm going to tighten it, and I'm going to loosen it, and I'm tighten it, and I'm going to loosen it. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm trying to make sure that the pipe isn't bound inside, because if I keep trying to undo the fitting and the pipe is binding on the inside of the fitting, it's going to twist and tear the pipe, and then we're going to get into a project where we have to replace the pipe, excuse me, the brake line, pipe line, whatever. All right, so just going to continue kind of doing that. I'm going to go down, up, and then I'm going to go down and stay. And I'm just going to kind of repeat that procedure until I can get the fitting to where it feels like it's fairly loose. And this is kind of hard for me to do with being able to keep the camera in position. Slowly getting it where we want to. And I don't know if you can see on the video, maybe if I raise this up, come up a little on this side, you can kind of see what I'm doing with the tool. Just kind of keeping one finger in the back and pushing the tool back on the fitting, bringing it down, tightening it a little bit, down, tightening it a little bit, and then staying down. And then just kind of continuing that kind of procedure, down, up, and make sure it feels nice and loose, and I can feel like I do not have any binding on the brake line inside the fitting. Now if you have newer lines, or you've done this particular replacement more recently and you don't have 20 years of corrosion on here like I do, you might not need to do this. Right now it's feeling very loose, right? So at this point I'm able to do a one finger movement. And so at that position, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move it one more time. And then I'm going to sit here and I'm going to switch tools. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that 13mm socket and I'm going to get started on these retaining bolts. And again, I'm trying to do this kind of blind here, feeling for the bleeder nut, bleeder screws cover, and then I'm trying to feel for the mounting nut next to it. Oh, there it is. All right. Now, if this gets like where you can't move it by hand, I guess I got lucky here. You can get a piece of pipe, a piece of steel iron pipe, and use it as an extension on your ratchet wrench. But this time, didn't have too much trouble breaking the torque on this guy. But it's all a matter of how much corrosion you're dealing with. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the one that's on to the right-hand side that I'm looking at, facing the cylinder. loose. You can stick your fingers back here, twist it off the rest of the way by hand. I know it's going to block you for a minute, but it's just not anything else I can do and still get this off. I won't bore you with the second one. We'll do that one off camera. All right, so just to show you what this little guy looks like. So just a very small bolt. And he's pretty rusty, but we were able to get him off without having to put an extension on here. All right, so now at this point, I'm going to come into the front. I know I got one more back there, but I don't want to take that off until I get the spring pressure off. Make sure you're wearing eye protection when you do this step. Now this type of tool, it just kind of goes right like this, and you twist it, and you pull it up, and it takes the spring right off. Same kind of deal on this side. I might take this off. Let's see if I can get it off without doing that. Oops, almost had it. All right, there we go. All right, so now we've got the tension off of here. We can pull this back, and now we'll be able to get the wheel cylinder out. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and take the other bolt from the back side here. Same thing I did on the front side. And actually what I'm going to do here is, rather than like have you guys be bored out just watching me take the bolt out, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and come back after I got this guy off. Lower view for you of removing this last bolt, just so you get a better view of what we're talking about here. Just going to get it till it doesn't ratchet anymore. And then we'll finish the brake line. And when we take the brake line off, of course, there's going to be fluid that falls out. All right, so we got this bolt off here. We'll go back to our 9/16. Just kind of finish this. So, you know, the hardest part of this repair is just the degree of corrosion that you're having to deal with on the various fittings. It's got some cramped quarters, but it's not that bad. All right, so we're just about done with this. I'm not going to take it all the way off because it's going to spurt fluid everywhere. I want to get something that I'm going to use to cap it off. So let me get this just a little bit further. So I'm almost at the last stage, and I'm going to stop and I'm going to show you the new part, go over some numbers, and then I'll go ahead and finish taking this the rest of the way off. All right, I think that's where I want it. It's getting pretty loose, and I think it's probably going to start dripping here in a minute, if it's not already. All right, so let's take a look at the front because it's already dripping. I can see it on my gloves. I want to move pretty quick here so I can get that sealed off. All right, so here's our new part. It's a Delco. The GM number is 192-13345, and of course the Delco number is 172-1215. It's the same number for both sides, driver's side and passenger side. And this is, of course, the number for this particular vehicle is a 3/4 ton class. Get it out of here. This is all you really got. This is a self-contained unit. You've got a cap that covers where your brake line is going to go in, and you're just going to make sure that you get your flare for the tube, or the pipe rather, right and very squared off before you start tightening it down so it seats properly. And then these are the threads for the 2 bolts that retain it. And then here's our new bleeder screw and a new bleeder cap. You're going to keep on the side here, there's a couple of plungers that fit on either side of this cylinder valve, here and here. You're going to keep these, and you're going to insert them into the replacement one. Unless they're super corroded and they appear to be pitted and damaged, in which case you might want to replace them. But usually these are salvageable. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, pause, get the brake line the rest of the way off, cap it off so it's not a huge mess, and then we'll come on and see the installation. We've got the new cylinder mounted, and I've just got this rear spring on. see we got the plungers both in here. There's no real torque value on these things. Basically what I did, end up having to take the glove off as much as the wife would prefer. I don't get the hands all dirty. I have to be able to feel these nuts to get them started. Basically what you end up having to do is just kind of hold this and move it around until you get the first one started. Once you get the first one started, you can give it a couple of turns with the ratchet wrench, and then you can get the other one started. And then at that point, you can get the fitting, the brake fitting itself, because now that it's held in place, it's much easier because you're only going to be able to work with 2 fingers at a time. I really can't film it back there, but you're going to have to get it started with your fingers, and then you can use the flare wrench to finish it. Just I'll put this last spring back on. I got a couple more things I'll tell you about that. And we'll be pretty much done with this. Basically, this tool has like a little indentation here that grabs onto the anchor pin so that you can slide the springs back on like that. All right, so at this point, I'm just checking up to make sure that I did not get any brake fluid on the shoes. And I also cleaned up, before I started the video again, any brake fluid that seeped down onto the axle, because otherwise I won't know. The next time I rotate the tires, I always check the drums. I won't know if this guy's leaking unless I clean it up now. I can see this nice and dry. And then we're going to go in the back. We're going to clean up the back, dry it off. We'll rinse it off with some water, dry it off, and then we'll bleed it, and this job is done. It's a fairly simple job. Shouldn't take you, depending on the corrosion problem, shouldn't take you more than 15-20 minutes to get it off, and then maybe another 10 minutes or so to get it on and cleaned up. So about a 30-minute job total, even if it's your first time. And I hope this helped you out. If you got any questions, just leave them down in the comments. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.